So,
even from the people who say, I'm going in kicking and screaming.
Mhm.
So I also am a big believer in community living. Humans are social animals. We want to be around people. We thrive when we're around other people. And I just think, these communities serve that purpose so beautifully and make life easy in those later years.
That's a great point, Catherine, about socialization and being around people. And I've seen that too, where people, and I'll say in my own family, it's like the thought of moving to any type of community is perceived as a negative. And then they get there and they realize, all the things that are in front of them that they can do and participate in and meeting other people. And you actually see an improvement in a quality of life. But as you said, the decisions are overwhelming. There's a lot of information out there to cut through, and it's so great that you can be an expert guide to help people with that.
and you know what, Catherine, what I've seen is that, which is really interesting, is that so many of my clients have said this to me, that we don't, we're very private people. We're not going to get involved in stuff. We're not going to be playing sports. We're just going to go in our place and close the door. And so many times when I follow up with these people and that they're in these 55 communities and they're like new people, I'm like, wait, is this the same person that said to me that they weren't going to, they didn't want to meet new people. They don't want to, have dinner with other people. It's an amazing transformation that I've seen.
Yeah. But Brett, the other reality there is, if you do want to live a quiet life and spend time in your apartment, you can do that.
Mhm.
It is your home. It is for you to use as you wish. You don't have to participate. It is not like a camp where you are on a schedule that you have to do these things. It is entirely your choice.
Right.
So,
And it's really the sense of security too that people have, like you said, because often you do have people who they don't want to be involved in everything, but knowing that you can, or even maybe it's just having dinner. And many of the communities have transition processes. They help you connect with other people if you want. You might be a single person. And I've seen that a lot where they're afraid to come to dinner or have a meal, and there are ways of connecting.
Most of the communities have kind of a welcoming group. So they make an effort to help introduce the new residents to the community and show them what's there and what's around. And they try to find people with similar interests to try and make it easier for everyone. But another point that's so important here is that life just becomes really easy because your meals are prepared for you. So you don't have to shop and think about what you're making for dinner every night. And, maybe you don't have a ton of energy that day. No problem. All you have to do is walk down the hall and go to the auditorium to hear this amazing choral group from the local high school. So it makes life just so much easier.
So, Catherine, for the benefit of those, and again, I think some people I'm watching some more participants come online. Could you tell us a little bit about Next Nest Advisors and actually what you actually do for people? Because it's a fascinating topic. And honestly, I didn't know that there was a person out there that did what you did.
Well, I don't know if there are. I just decided to give this a try.
Okay.
So I sort of call myself, as you might, I've just recently went through this process with my children. I'm a new empty nester. So as you might hire a college advisor to help your child figure out what college makes sense, I consider myself like a senior living advisor, because all of these communities are different. They have different offerings. They don't suit everyone. So my goal is to help come up with the short list of the communities that might make the most sense for you or your loved ones, and then help you with the process of figuring that out. So I can, reduce the headache and the hassle factor significantly. Because I know right off the top, like if you have a few amenities that you are looking for in a community, like you must have a pool, well, I can tell you right away, like that eliminates X, Y, and Z community. So there are ways like that where I can be super helpful. I have helped families in so many different roles and so many different ways. I've helped a couple that was relocating here from Florida, and their sister and sister-in-law was coming with them, And they realized that she could no longer live by herself. So they were encouraging her to move into a community. So I went on the hunt and I found a place like literally 9 minutes away from their home that was perfect for her. She was not interested in moving into a community, but she's one of those that 2 months later is like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I'm meeting so many interesting people. I've helped a daughter who was working, so her dad was diagnosed with early Alzheimer's at 74. And he was in this area. She lived in Washington, D.C. and has a big job and was just like, I can't do this myself. I need your help. So I gave her the short list of places that we should consider. And I actually toured alongside her, looking at everything, because a lot of people like having a second set of eyes as they're considering this, especially if they're, working on this alone for their parent. It's reassuring to have someone else, with them in the process. I know what questions to ask. I know what to be looking for as you tour the community. We can play good cop, bad cop, where I ask all the rough questions.
I love it.
And, they maintain a nice relationship with the community. So I can serve any role that people need. So it's a very, personalized process because everyone is different. And what I hope is, most people only go through this once or maybe twice in their life. So how would they know what to do or where to go? Well, I now have this library of knowledge that I've gained from all my different clients with all these different scenarios where so many different things have come up. So I can provide a lot of insight quickly.
And Catherine, you mentioned, which kind of hit home with me, you mentioned about kind of like you compared it to the college advisor trying to figure out the right, if you will, fit for your kids for college, which, having gone through that with both my daughters, I know there's this fit. No matter what I said or where I wanted the kids to go, they said something else. They wanted to be here for a particular reason. It seems like in what you're talking about is there is a fit because it has to do with your, what your activities are. Like, do you like to play bocce? Do you like to swim? Is there a gym? Is there, is it a cerebral community? All these various things go into that mix. Is that pretty much how it works?
Yes. So I help try to tease that out with each person. And, we go through it. And at the end of the day, though, like, it really is essential that each person goes and checks out the community.
Right,
and they have to see it for themselves,
Right.
and they have to feel it. And another tip that I would mention that I'm sure Lydia would agree with, so often my clients go in and they say, what's going on here? There's no one here. Like, or everyone's really frail.
Right.
And my point to that is you've got your independent, vibrant people who are there. They're out doing their thing.
Right.
So you don't always see them on one tour. So similar to you talking about the condo with sound, you often want to visit these communities several times at different times of day. You want to see, activities, you want to see meal times, and, it's a big move. So you certainly want to investigate and be sure that it makes sense. So
yeah, and the more you can meet other residents, that's helpful as well, or have a meal there, because usually a one-shot visit is not going to do it.
No. And that's something else that I offer my clients. So now I have a number of residents in different communities, and they're willing to talk to my new clients to give the inside scoop about, because you'll talk to the marketing people and they'll tell you one thing, but my residents are happy to talk to potential residents, and that can be a nice bonus of insight as well.
And what do you find in terms of how many choices does someone tip? Is there anything that's typical, meaning someone needs to visit 3 places, 5 places, or is it more determined, you think, by or predicated by like their budgetary constraints and their activities, and that might be different for each person?
I think it kind of is different for each person. I mean, in an ideal world, if you're still young and healthy and fully independent, then absolutely look at a number of different places. But if, you might have some situations where it prevents you from going into a community as independent, then that sort of changes the dynamic a little bit. I know in one of your previous webinars, Lydia went through all the different types of communities, and I don't know if we want to do that here, but that does have a big factor in this clearly, because if the traditional type A contracts, CCRCs, you need to go in healthy and fully independent. And it's a rigorous assessment process between financial and medical and cognitive. So in that case, you definitely need to be on the young side. You need to be doing this while you're healthy and still fully functioning independent. And you also, I would say, need to start the process well in advance of when you might want to go, because most of these places have waiting lists, especially for the larger apartments, the 2 bedrooms, the 2-bedroom and bath, which most people want when they're downsizing from their big home. And, that can be a 2 to 5 year wait. So you definitely want to start this process a lot earlier while you're healthy and strong and can make your own decisions.
And we talked in some of these other ABC of senior housing webinars, and we seem to ask most of our guests what the best time to start the process. And I'll never forget the one we did about Section 121 with the IRS with Linda Anderson, a really good elder lawyer. She said that she gave her kids, and I quote, I think they got the financial planning package when they were, was it when they were like 20 or something?
Yeah. I mean,
So,
which is amazing and
Yeah.
great. I mean, well, of course, she's going to be more proactive, but it's a great idea. Catherine, do you find that most people are coming to you looking at independent living or assisted living, or where are you really finding your clientele?
It's kind of all over the map. A number have come looking at independent living, even though they're in their mid 80s, and they say,
Yes.
Wow.
yeah, I'm not ready to move. I'm thinking 3 years, and I'm thinking, what are you thinking?
Oh my gosh.
But and then a lot of times, it's more of a crisis situation, which is not my favorite,
No, it's
because it's
awful.
hard. It's just
Right.
hard. The minute you're in a crisis situation, your options are reduced. Usually compromise is involved, and we hate compromise, but then it's about minimizing compromise. So
Right.
so my target age, Brett, you didn't really
Okay.
ask, but I'm going to tell you, I think you need to start looking when you're in your early to mid 70s,
70s.
because there are a couple reasons. A, you want to be doing this while you're strong and healthy. And B, a lot of these communities have incentives to make the move before age 80 financially. So, so that's another reason. And I think Lydia's talked about this before. You want to go in so you can take full advantage of these amenities. They are like cruise ships on land.
Right.
You want to go and have fun and take advantage, get to know people, make friends, create a network. And it makes it so much more worthwhile. And doing that while you're younger and healthier and stronger is the way to go.
It's so nice that you have clients who can speak to your other clients where they're living, because that personal reference makes such a huge difference. It is scary.
It is.
You're
It's
absolutely
a huge leap.
right. And when people have reacted in a crisis and they've waited too long, which a lot of people do, unfortunately, being able to create ties in a community is so tough. And it really limits your experience, which, as we all have said, can be a very, very positive, and usually is if you're going in and you're healthy enough to take advantage of all the amenities and reach out to other residents, whether you're very, very social or not, but you want to be able to have a quality of life wherever you move.
Absolutely.
And Catherine, do you find that, in these webinars, we talk about the proactive versus the reactive situation. Do you find that more of your clients come to you are more proactive and it's done in advance, or is there anything you could share with that? Like, what do you see?
Yeah, I think a lot of times they are coming to me in a proactive way, which is so delightful. That's when it can be more fun, because it's like, okay, let's see what's out there and what you like. And then sometimes as the decision drags on, then it becomes less proactive. And then it becomes more of like, okay, we need to do this.
Mhm.
And the traditional plan life care community is no longer an option. So now what are we doing?
Mhm.
And that's happened a few times. And the good news is there are still really great options out there. They're just, it's a different model. It's a different, it's more of the fee for service where you pay for the care when you need it, but that's okay. They still work well. There are still lots of great communities that fit that bill. But it just becomes a different discussion then.
Mhm.
And you mentioned earlier, I think this was before people came on the call, about geographically, which I found interesting. And because I know Lydia, if I'm not mistaken, I think you had, was there a family member in Florida you were working on remotely? And I know
My
that you
mother-in-law
went through that process, right?
My father's in Tennessee, and so yeah.
Tennessee. So, and Catherine, you said the same thing. I think I heard you say that you're able to do this for people all over the country. Is that,
Yeah,
how does
so
that work?
it's actually happening more and more. It's been very interesting. Certainly, I love doing the local ones because I know the communities, I have residents, and like I just have more resources to put against the case. But I have had people, I've had someone reach out to me from Seattle saying, I need help understanding nursing homes and what's available. Can you help me figure that out? I had a family of 3 daughters. They lived in all different locations around the country. Their parents were in Colorado. No one was near the parents. And we went through this whole process and they decided, okay, well, we'll move closer to one of the daughters. So they're moving from Colorado to Greensboro, North Carolina. And I was able to vet the different communities that were available there and give them the short list to consider. And then the local daughter was the boots on the ground and went through and toured them. And she was favoring one community. And I said, I get it, but please take a look at this other one because it's really good. And lo and behold, they chose the one that I was suggesting, even from afar. So, I'm still able to get the insights and ask the questions and equip the family with, the questions and things that they should be looking at, even though I don't know the community myself, and it also helps when I talk to the marketing person of that community because I know the questions to ask and I know I can get to the nitty gritty really quickly.
So, but bottom line is, although a lot of your clientele is more localized, but you can pretty much do this for anyone in the United States because you're going to be asking similar questions to the marketing people and be able to add value to your client that way.
Yeah. And I just
Wow.
helped another family. The mother's going to move from Doylestown out to Colorado.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, big move.
yeah, I'm helping
Yes.
someone from, I have 2 clients actually from Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Huh.
Who knew?
Well, the nice thing is you'll note on the call, we have a lot of people and some people did sign on after we got started, but many times we have people from all over the country. We've had people from Canada, Florida, from the West Coast, but typically they have some kind of connection to this area. So they want the information to help, a family member. So it's nice to know that you can help people beyond this greater Philadelphia area.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is
So
actually,
really,
I was going to
yeah,
ask, my question, Catherine, if you can speak to as well, is what is your process? Do you, I guess I'm wondering, do you meet with the client first, but obviously if they're geographically unavailable, this would be a great way to do it by Zoom, but if you could speak to that.
Sure. So normally what happens is someone finds out about me and they, reach out to me either through my website. I have a contact form on my website, or they just contact me directly. And we start with a brief discovery call because I need to understand the situation and what's there and what's happening. And I do get a lot of calls where I can't be terribly helpful, but I will always try to equip someone with some resources or some other names of people to follow up with. So, we spend a fair bit of time on that call so I can get to know the family, the dynamics, what's happening, the situation, et cetera. And then if we think it's a good idea to move forward, I then follow up with an email where I send my contract. I have a simple 2-page contract. I work hourly. That's what all my clients have preferred, because I can provide as much or as little support as they want. Like sometimes we'll divide and conquer, where, you know, they'll work on some of it and I'll work on some of it. We come back, compare notes, etc. Sometimes it's full soup to nuts, where, you know, I'm touring every community with them and, you know, driving them around. Happy to do that too. So I have the contract that needs to be signed, and then I start with an opening questionnaire. So it is a multiple page questionnaire. I have 2 versions, one for yourself, if you're looking for yourself, or one for the loved one, because a lot of times it's the loved one looking and, you know, really taking the lead. And that questionnaire helps give me really good insights right away of what's happening there. What's the financial situation, because that can be a huge factor right off the top. And also just getting to know the people, like, and so then I can start formulating which communities might make sense, and get to the short list right away. So that,
and it's good because you're what I'm hearing you say is that you are you're guiding the client and you have their best interests at heart.
absolutely. I am. So the client pays me,
Right.
and I am your advocate in this process. And
that's a really important point. And
I go to bat for you. There are many times where I'm able to help things financially with communities, you know, because I can tell them, like, you should negotiate that, or you should negotiate this, or what have you. But absolutely, I take huge personal pride in this, and I develop real relationships with my clients to the point where I find out afterward, I follow up with them afterward. A lot of times they'll reach out to me and let me know what's happening. And that's so meaningful to me. And I really, that's my favorite part of this job. I love what I do.
Well, your heart is obviously into it. And I'm going to stress that point again, because I think there's so much misinformation out there, and people get overwhelmed and don't know where to get information. And there are resources out there that are helpful, but very often it's the community paying for a referral or something. And so when you have an independent advisor, you're truly getting somebody who's advocating and working for you.
Absolutely. And that is a point that will come up with my clients, because there are free services out there.
Right.
And, you know, yes, they're free, but can you be sure they're really looking out for your best interest? And quite frankly, many of the very best communities don't participate in those programs.
Right.
So those advisors are never going to recommend these best communities because they won't get paid.
Right.
So that is absolutely a consideration.
I've looked at that very, very carefully, having launched this series, The ABCs of Senior Housing, and I wanted to see obviously what else was out in the marketplace. And Catherine, you hit the nail right on the head, because, you know, I looked at some of these huge, you know, corporations that provide information, but it's all connected to, you know, it's a payment. You know, these communities pay to advertise on these sites, and then this company will refer to those particular people, but you're not getting the entire benefit of everything that's out there.
No, and the other thing is, these large referral sites and companies, they do no vetting whatsoever.
Right.
So I've had clients call me and say, oh, you know, blah, blah, blah said that this community should be, you know, where my parents look. And I said, your parents can't afford that community. That is not an option.
Yeah.
And so then they spend a lot of time like going through all this stuff where it's like, it's not even an option. It's not even a consideration.
And it wastes time, honestly.
It's a huge waste of time and frustrating.
Right.
So Catherine, I guess my question is, so you have like relationships and you've visited all these places, so you know kind of the ins and outs. Would you say for like a typical client, you could really like add so much value by cutting down the number of hours, days, visits that client would need to make to experience all these places, when you can tell them, look, this one here, don't even bother. They just don't offer, you know, there's no swimming pool or whatever that issue is.
Absolutely.
And really make it a very efficient process for someone, because this is stressful. This is,
Yeah.
there's so many,
Full-time job, and it's a full-time
confusing.
job
Yeah.
on top of a full-time job for many people,
Right, right.
and you just don't have time. And I think in your webinar that I watched of the two of you earlier, you made the point that with some of these communities, you get swept up into the new, the greatest, the prettiest. And that happens to all of us. And the reality is, as you say, the newest shiny penny isn't always the best option.
Right, right.
So, I try to keep people grounded in, what are your priorities? What are we focused on? Let's stay focused on that.
And at the end of the day, you actually save time.
I do.
Yeah,
do.
because people don't know. They don't, they can be, kind of enamored of a brand new community. And I know in my role, like, well, have you looked at staffing? Do you know who's there? Do you know what services? Do you know if you have this service, it's going to cost more?
Right.
And people
Look at
don't.
staff turnover.
Right, exactly. They don't really understand. They don't know what they don't know.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right.
And how about in this process, Catherine, you mentioned some of like the economic things, and do you work with other advisors to help your clientele when it comes time to reviewing like these contracts and things? How do you handle that part of the process?
So, that's an interesting area. Thank you for bringing that up. So a lot of times clients will ask me to look at the contracts, which I'm happy to do. And everyone should absolutely get the contracts in advance if you're getting serious about a community, and they should be willing to share it with you, no problem. And you just want to make sure there aren't any surprises in there. So you want to look through that carefully. I always recommend, have your financial advisor and your attorney look at it as well, because this is a very big decision. And a lot of times it is very big dollars that are represented, because if you're moving into a community at age 75 and you're putting up a $300,000 entrance fee or more, and you're looking at, $100,000 a year in your monthly fees, you're easily at $1 million decision very quickly.
Right.
So you want some serious eyes on this. So I definitely recommend that. And a quick point. So Brett, a lot of times when families get into the minutia and they've figured out, okay, we want to go to this community, great, that's awesome. But then there's another whole set of issues and decisions that has to happen, because many times they offer different financial plans. Like sometimes it's a 90% refundable or a 50% refundable or a non-refundable. And all of that is dictated by the size of the unit, but then it has very different implications for entrance fee and monthly fee. So I will often run financial models of the different units to help the family decide, okay, I think we want to do the 90% refundable, and they go from there. One of my clients took all the financial models that I did and shared them with her financial advisor for another look and a confirmation. So there's a lot of that goes on too.
So your MBA is hard at work. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, I love making a good spreadsheet. Happy to do
Me too.
It's very rewarding.
Yes.
So that's something else that I do to try and help people drive to the right decision for their family.
Do you find that it's the adult children reaching out to you, or
a lot of the times it is. They're driving the decision. So to answer the question, why do people hire me? For the things we've already talked about, but also I can help get through those family dynamics, because it can get really challenging, and everyone has their own opinion and people have differences of opinion. And I can be the objective party with facts, with experience, so I can help people understand how things work, and I can help get the family all together on board. So a lot of times that's the role I serve too. Sometimes more successfully than others, but I do my best and we try. And a lot of times I'm actually able to have the conversations with the parents that the kids have been having all along, but they listen and they take action after I have it. Just
sometimes that independent person, one family member can make such a tremendous difference, because you're right, like there are so many family dynamics, and you're impartial and you need to be impartial, and then it can kind of lead a little bit faster to a decision.
Yeah. So like, for instance, my clients who lived in Colorado and none of their daughters were near them, I was able to say to them, look, you are being a burden by staying there, because if something happens, your daughters have to drop what they're doing. Fort Collins is not the easiest place to get to. And what's going to happen? So once I was able to crystallize it that way, I think they were like, oh, I never really thought about it that way. So then they were more willing to take action.
Catherine,
it's-
do you specifically focus on communities? Do you ever engage with a client and then they kind of say, I want to stay at home. Now, what does that look like for me?
Sure. And sometimes it also becomes a financial decision too, where
Right.
that's the
Right.
right move. So then I try to equip with as many resources as I can. I actually do a lot of work with Surrey Services.
Mhm.
They are a
Yes,
phenomenal
I love them.
organization, and they are able to bridge the gap a lot. So I try to put people in touch with Surrey,
Mhm.
and that can often help provide engagement and reduce isolation and some of those things in a more cost-effective manner.
Yeah. Yeah.
Plus, it's just a great community to be part of. Brett knows, he does it too.
Yes, I do. And it's funny, we've invited them. We haven't, I don't think we've been successful, but that's for a future
We'll
agency of
work on
senior
that.
housing. We wanted to have Surrey. So here you go. Here's a perfect
work on that.
opportunity because they
I
do.
did just have lunch in the cafe the other day.
Yeah.
It was lovely.
Oh, I love they have such a great deal for
They do.
their lunch.
They
My
do.
gosh, it's so good.
It is.
So it sounds like, Catherine, you wear like a ton of hats. Like there's a whole bunch of hats you're wearing. There's a financial hat. There's you're dealing with the family. There's a counseling part you're wearing. I mean, you have all these things going on. It's a very challenging set of constraints you're working with with all these clients, it sounds like.
Yes. And I do my very best to try as I can. And if it ends up in an area where I can't help, I try to send them over to someone who could help. And, as I said, I love what I do. I look out for my clients as if I would look out for my own family. And, my goal is to make this as easy and as joyful as possible and come up with the best outcome.
I think joyful is a nice word too, because people often do look at this whole process with doom and gloom.
Yeah.
And really, it doesn't have to be that way. It's a change for many people, obviously, and people fear change, but there's so much good that can come out, and people do flourish if they allow themselves. A lot of it is attitude. But it's nice to approach it that way too, that, we're looking to improve quality of life and bring joy into your life as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And as I'm sure you've seen, so often one of the biggest obstacles is, I can't imagine moving to a smaller space.
Oh,
Oh
heavens,
my gosh, what am I going to do with all my stuff?
right.
And I understand, like, that is a big deal.
Mhm.
And that's another reason why you want to start thinking about this sooner rather than later.
Right.
Plus, you'd want to pull in your friend Brett here,
Yeah.
because as you're thinking about selling down the road, like, you should have a realtor come in and strategize about what you should do to your home to get it ready for sale. So you start working on that and you start your downsizing process, little projects at a time. Like, there are lots of ways that you can tackle it so that it's not insurmountable. And there are resources to help with that too, as you've mentioned.
Yeah.
But
There's many
yeah,
resources. Yeah.
it's a
And what's
time.
interesting, you have a perfect segue, Catherine, into our next month's webinar in November. We have two guests on that call. One is an auction vendor,
Oh.
and the other is a tag sale vendor. So we're just, again, there's
Yeah.
thousands of different places that you can take and figure out what to do with your stuff. And that is, in my opinion, it's usually the hardest part of this process for most people.
Right.
And it just shuts them down. Like, they're just overwhelmed with their stuff and where's it going to go and what do I do, let alone trying to figure out where to go next. It's, that's just a huge obstacle and challenge for
Yes,
people.
but it doesn't need to be.
Yeah.
And I had one client who I thought handled this perfectly. She said, okay, I can downsize to a point, but then I still have some stuff that I can't part with yet.
Mhm.
So she made a pact with herself that she would get a storage unit for 1 year
Oh,
and give herself
Hmm.
just 1 year after she made the move to the community. And then she would reevaluate what was in there. And she did. She stayed true to herself. She evaluated 1 year later and realized, okay, I don't need it anymore. I can let it go.
that's great. Yeah.
So there are ways, and she did also fess up to me later because she brought a ton of serving dishes and platters and crystal for 25. And I was like, what are you thinking? Like, you're not going to be entertaining like that over there. And she said, but I can't let it go. I'm like, okay. And sure enough, shortly after, or maybe it was even a couple of years after she had made the move, she said, okay, I don't need that stuff. I can let it go now. It's a process. It's a process. And
Yeah.
you just need to embrace the process and know it and not beat yourself up
Mhm.
and just, take it one day at a time.
And again, all the resources that are out there now, sometimes people will look at an apartment or a villa or whatever and think, oh, I can't, how on earth would I furnish this? And there are downsized people. There are people who will help with that. They will draw up a whole floor plan for you. They will literally mark this piece of furniture should go, and this is where it will fit. And so it really does take that stress if you take advantage of it. And like Brett was saying, often in moving, you don't just need a junk removal, you need, an estate person, an auction person, somebody who can appraise your things.
Absolutely.
And that's, so it's really pulling together a whole bunch of resources to help, but they are out there. There's
Yeah.
very good ones. It's again, it's really somebody to guide you through that process and point you to the right resources half the
Yeah.
time.
And actually, some of the communities even offer that service as part of their move-in
Right.
benefit.
Yep.
I've been offering it. I've started, I don't know, several years ago, we started putting this because so many of our clients are 55 plus, right? That's the boomers. If you look at the progression of the population and the growth pattern, it's in our marketplace, it's huge. So it was just a service. We started doing it. We've had clients literally hand us the keys to a house, and I just had one in Ohio, and they said, okay, figure out everything. There's nothing we want in here.
Oh,
And the best part of that entire story, and I'm going to segue back into our guest that we want to have, they had this piece of medical equipment. They had a Hoyer. It's a very expensive lift.
Yes.
And I said, that we're going to find somebody local. And we went to Surrey, and Surrey was so happy because they were starting like a training program for their people. So we donated the Hoyer to Surrey. The client got, a deduction. Surrey got this wonderful piece of, equipment that's really needed. And we were able to get the house ended up. Like, what a win all the way around to be able to do stuff like that.
Absolutely.
Because usually it's the brownwood furniture, which no one wants. So that's a whole nother topic of conversation.
Well, and another tip that I got years ago, similar to that, Brett, was if you happen to have like a collection of something very special or unique, or like if you have a tool shop that is
Right.
filled with, amazing tools, what you should do is find a local craftsman who might have just started in the business and needs to build up his tool bin. And, I've heard stories where people have done that. And, a young apprentice plumber benefited from this amazing set of tools.
that's a great idea.
Is there any advice you would give to I'm sure you got tons of advice. I mean, you've given
Lydia
us
and I
advice.
sing in harmony on this one.
Yeah. And Lydia, I know you have tons of advice, and you could probably go on for, hours, but is there anything that you think would be more relative to the audience that you think you would want to talk to them about?
Start sooner rather than
Sooner.
later.
I thought you were going to say that.
Way before you think you might want to do this.
Mhm.
Because as we've talked about, there are many reasons there are delays and it won't happen. And, and you want to be healthy and young and strong and have the energy to go through the process of downsizing and make all these decisions. And,
Right.
you want to make your own decisions. You don't want them made for you.
How about,
I absolutely agree with that. And I will also add that, when you're looking at communities, what I see in the CCRC environment is a lot of time people don't want to go through the healthcare centers because of course they'll never need that. And yet you're paying a lot of money for that service or for those services. And so I think it's really important that people do understand exactly what they're purchasing, what level of care and what's covered. It's not just the apartment or whatever in a CCRC, but it's really the access to care. That's
Absolutely.
so important.
And funny enough, do you have a Hoyer lift? Is
Right.
a question I have them ask because it becomes very relevant.
Yes, and that's funny you're mentioning that because I'm going through that right now. We don't use those in the personal care setting. They're used in skilled generally. Some personal care assisted living will, but it is important to know that. So,
Right.
yeah.
interesting.
So, and for the audience, a Hoyer lift is used for individuals who are no longer able to stand up or, get out of their chair on their own or bed. So it's used to move them safely.
And they're not inexpensive. My understanding, it was like a several $1,000 piece of equipment, right? Wasn't it like?
They're serious.
Yeah,
Yeah,
not
they really are.
inexpensive.
Yeah.
So everyone on the call, a couple things. We're going to do some Q&A. I want to say to everyone that you definitely stay connected with us for our guests, for ourselves, and a couple reasons to stay connected to us. We do a lot of really interesting promotions. We're coming up on one of my most favorite one of the entire year. We have a Thanksgiving Day pie that we give everyone. In fact, everyone on the call, you will be getting an invitation to that. You can stop in our office and pick up this huge pie. And that's a ton of fun. We do a whole bunch of things. So definitely connect with us and connect with our guest. I want to also give you the contact, because this always comes up, Catherine. Everybody always wants to know, what's the best way to reach you? Do you like telephone? Are you an email person? Any preference that you have?
I often like email because people can provide more information in that, but I'm happy, phone call works. I'm happy just to talk to people. My goal is to just help more people with this process because I know it can be challenging and I just want to make it easier. I did just launch, I have to do a shameless plug here, Brett. I did just launch a YouTube channel where I'm providing general video information about this whole process with an expert who's been through it. I'm going to be rolling that out over the next weeks and months. So please consider subscribing to my YouTube channel. It's Next Nest Advisors when you search on YouTube.
And I listened to it, just so you know. I think I got an early invitation and I thought it was absolutely wonderful. You did a phenomenal job. I love your guest. It was awesome. Very well done.
Thank you, Brett.
Very well done. And then everybody, this is a time for Q&A. I know we've had some Q&A already that have come in. Everyone on the call, we're going to be, just so that you know, we'll be following up with a survey, I think, within the next week or so, because we like to know what other things you want to hear about, what guests you want to hear, what topics you would like us to cover. I think I did say next month, and it's on the website. It's, I think, the second Saturday of November at 10 o'clock. That's typically when we do these ABCs of senior housing. We'll have two guests on that will be talking about what to do with your stuff, right? There's thousands of different places and things to do with your stuff when you're in a downsize situation or you're moving to another house. So we have two guests. One will be talking about the auction process. One will be talking about the tag sale option. Just, again, two options. So feel free to sign up for those. We had a bunch of questions. My only comment is the Q&A that came up was not really specific to today's topic. We were talking to someone offline before we got started about sound in a townhome, and I think there were some follow-up questions. So I might say to contact me offline because it's very, very specific about bringing in sound engineers and HOAs, but I'm very, very familiar with that. So please follow up after. Any other questions? Did I miss
I'm
any?
just going to make one other suggestion I know you'll be bringing in the auctioneer and the tag sale person. Another great resource that a lot of people don't realize is right here in Berwyn, Surrey, who we've talked about before, has a consignment store, and they've just expanded it. So it's double in size, and they do a wonderful job of reselling your items. And they actually give you a larger split than most consignment stores in the area. So I would highly recommend considering bringing your well-loved items to Surrey.
And I actually, I'm a consumer or customer for things like that. Although my wife tells me I'm not really supposed to, because she's actually planning for us on the downsize, but I have this interest in buying lots of stuff. So, and one of our guests, I've participated in his auction before. So I can be dangerous at places like that.
I can too, I understand.
So yeah, everybody
find some
has their
treasures.
weaknesses.
But you can find some amazing treasures.
Yes,
Yes.
you can. Yes, absolutely.
There's some awesome things. And there's also a lot of other, there's, there's things on Facebook, Marketplace.
Absolutely.
You have to be just so careful. I'm going through that right now with my mother-in-law. We're working on her downsize, and everything we just talked about, difficulty and challenges and getting rid of stuff and sourcing stuff. We're in the middle of that right now. So I know what that's all about. It's certainly not easy, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel when everything comes together and gets done.
I'll add too, Brett, that it helps to get things off site or, to a consignment shop. I have had an experience where we were trying to do things with a yard sale and the person was shopping at their own yard sale. So
Yeah.
it became, oh, wait, no, I really do want that. I'm like, oh,
Yes. That's not the idea. The idea is to move it out.
yeah.
Actually, we have on our topic, either you, Catherine, I think you did a phenomenal job because, oh wait, you know what, I have to scroll down further. I might have missed some of that.
And the other thing that's the Surrey shop, I think, still takes, and they usually have good luck with, is China.
Oh, wow. That's
And that is something a lot of people struggle with, finding, a home for their China.
Yeah.
And Surrey does okay with that.
All right, so here's really a question for, ooh, that was a bird just ran into a window, if you heard that big bang. This was for Catherine, and I think it does go back to the noise question, but it was about, are there communities which are designed where you wouldn't hear your neighbors? Like what would happen if you had a sound challenged consumer? How would you work with that person in your process? Has that ever come up? Or?
That has not come up. I've had some vision issues come up, but not hearing. That's going to be a case by case study. For the most part, I have not had my clients complain about the noise in these communities. I think they're generally built quite well, especially the older ones, and that's not a common issue.
There was another one that came up, and this is for you, I think, too,
Yeah.
Catherine. It was someone on the call who works with people who are blind. Could you provide assistance that is that precise? That was her question for you.
Again, it's going to be a case by case situation. Most of these communities have residents in them that are visually impaired. So that, they've had to manage these situations. So then it would be a matter of talking with the staff there and understanding how that would work. I mean, the good news is they are designed largely to have wide hallways and elevators and easy access because they're trying to manage for people as they're aging. So they accommodate scooters, they accommodate walkers. So it should make general navigation easy. Plus, most of them have, handrails along the side of the walls as well. So I would think they'd be able to manage visual issues.
There's also regulations in place that you have to indicate and what resources you have available for visually impaired, hearing impaired, and all that. So you're right, Catherine. Most of the community, they're well prepared for that.
Lydia, anything else you want to add to the webinar today? Anything we
Just that,
missed?
to utilize this resource. I mean, it's, you don't know what you don't know until you start, having adult parents or yourself, where you start having needs. And the more you can educate yourself, explore what's out there, have somebody guide you, the better off you'll be. You'll be a knowledgeable consumer.
And Catherine, I think your service is, as soon as you came in, I was absolutely delighted, first of all, to talk with you and to hear your story and everything, but more importantly, especially for my clients, who many times are just so stuck with, it's an overwhelming, they don't know where to go, it's kind of getting people over that hump. And your service is so valuable, like what you can do. I know of no one else that offers what you offer, which makes it so wonderful that, we have you as a guest today.
Well, thank you, Brett. I really appreciate that. And I'm happy to help anyone in any way I can.
And do you want to just one more time say how people will contact you?
Sure. So it's Next Nest Advisors. My website is nextnestadvisors.com. I actually have a lot of resources on there. I've got FAQs. I have suggested reading of articles, outside books, outside resources. I've got testimonials, so you can see how I've helped other people if you're not sure how you might engage me. And there's a contact form on there too. So that's an easy way to get to me. Next Advisor.
Okay.
And you
I've also,
well.
awesome. I've added also to our website, we've put on a ton of resources, and I think your videos we're going to have you on, and if it hasn't been done, it's in process. We want to put all that because we thought it was great information. So thank you.
Thank you.
Well,
thank you, Brett. This is a great service that you do.
Yes.
Thanks. I'm really happy today because we're ending exactly on an hour, which sometimes that doesn't happen, but we were very fortunate today. So thank you everyone for joining. Lydia, as usual, thank you very much. Your insight is just awesome. And Catherine, I really enjoyed having you and learning more about what you do. So thanks.
Thank you, Brett.
Have a great day, everyone.
Right. Enjoy the sun.
Take care.
Bye.